cafe. Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
So good to be here today. I meant to do a show on Saturday on July 17th, but things got in the way.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I was needed in an emergency capacity, so I had to jump into movement, and I had to see that a certain program got on the radio, and I took care of that because, you know, I am such a good guy, such a good fellow to take care of things like that. And that's the intro song.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I know some of you will be checking out this podcast for the first time because of the photo, the podcast picture that I have posted.
Yeah!
And some of you may have not realized a very important fact that happened a year ago, actually this past Saturday. That's why I really wanted to do a program on Saturday, and I could not. And the reason why I wanted to do a program was because it was the 1-year anniversary on Saturday, July 17th, that Basil the Boxer passed away. And those of you who know me really well know that, I mean, I've mentioned it every podcast since then. He was a very important dog in my life. You know, sometimes pets really help us through some tough times. I went through a divorce. I went through some big changes in my life, and my dog was there. And we would go out and enjoy amazing walks all around the Bay Area, and I posted so many podcast pictures from different places we went. One of the places we went to quite a bit was Half Moon Bay and check out the Pacific Ocean. And the podcast picture today, I'm gonna tell you right now, was actually in a little cove we call Basil's Cove. My lovely lady friend and I found the cove. Actually, Basil never went to this cove. This was after Basil had passed, and we took our first trip to see the Pacific Ocean after he had passed. And, it was too difficult to take him to the beach towards the end because...
And here's today's podcast picture.
He couldn't walk anymore. And an 85-pound dog, you need to pick him up and take him everywhere. And to pick him up and plop him down on the sand just did not seem like it would be fun for him anymore. So we spent the last 6 months or so where he couldn't walk. We were just with him all the time, basically. So the podcast picture is of myself with Basil. Basil now resides, his ashes reside in a little box that kind of remind us of Basil because it has his brindle coat. The wood kind of resembles his brindle coat. And so there I am with him. And Monkey. There was this monkey that he loved to play with. He would be fighting with it, rawr, and I'd play it. And then the monkey would do this, and Basil would just stare at it and do that. Nipper, you ever heard of Nipper? The RCA record label, Nipper looking at the speaker to the old radio record player. And yeah, that's kind of what Basil would do with his head. You know how dogs do that when they hear a funny sound. So there, his favorite toy, and there he is with myself sitting at Basil's Cove looking at the sunset, and this picture was taken, I think this was mid-June, that's right, mid-June, so about a month before the anniversary of his passing. So see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. But maybe some of you didn't know about that, and I tell you, and as I've said before, I do not want to put and advertise on social media something this personal, something this important in my life that happened. I hate the whole eulogizing on social media, because then people comment below and it becomes a popularity thing, and I hate that. When someone close to me passes and I have to dispel that news, I'm going to tell you over the phone. I'm going to call you in person. That's big news. I'm going to tell you in person. It's not something to go on social media, and I just hate that. So to those of you who did not know and you're checking out the podcast and you're going, oh, okay, that's what happened to Basil. There you go. That's what happened. And that's why I'm with him in his current state. He's in a box, and that little box has a little plaque on it, has something on it that I'm not going to tell you over the podcast because it is very personal, but it's the final memory of him. Now, I went for a walk this past weekend, and I did not bring the box because it is kind of heavy. Even in this state now, Basil is still pretty heavy for a long hike anyway. But I did bring along his leash, his collar. And his collar had this sound when he would walk. He'd have this little jingling sound because his tags were on the collar. So as I walked with the collar in my pocket, I could hear the jingling sound. It was almost like he was with me again. All of this to say, we all have different ways of grieving huge events, big people that we miss, big beings that we miss in our lives that were important presences in our lives. And this interesting thought that somebody wrote about how to deal with loss when someone passes. Some interesting suggestions. 11 healthy ways to grieve, but here I'll mention just a few of them. So once the body is gone, don't immediately purge all the evidence of the person, the being. And this person writes, I've seen this happen a lot. It can be jarring, especially to children. Following the advice of hospice professionals, straighten the room, remove medical-looking objects, make the bed up nicely, and put an object on the bed that was important to the person who died. A book, a photo album, a stuffed animal, whatever seems right. If the person died at home, you can keep this area available for loved ones to visit for as long as it feels right. For as long as it feels right. That's what it really comes down to. Grief is something you never know when it's gonna pop up on you. I mean, I wasn't as sad on Saturday on Basil's anniversary as I was on Good Friday of all days. Good Friday, I got really sad thinking about Basil because Good Friday, he and I used to do a bunch of fun little trips and adventures because I get off Good Friday at my job because my job is a religiously founded company, has a lot of ties to Christianity, and they believe very strongly that you take Good Friday off. It's a very important day. So we take the day off and do something fun, Basil and I. As we go outside a cafe anyway, we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley, Mont today, the last place on earth. This also goes on to say, if your loved one died in the hospital, talk to the hospital social worker about how long it's possible for the room to be kept this way. Even an hour can be very helpful. Make an in-home memorial to your dead loved one. This can be something as simple as a photo on a table or shelf with a small array of objects that remind you of the person. It could be a nice place to put seasonal objects from nature like flowers and pine cones. This activity is especially healing for children. It's perfectly healthy to use this area as a place to talk to your departed loved one, to say a prayer or mantra, or even to have a meal. Make a connection to the natural world. The earth can ground you and provide a channel for your pain to move through and be transformed. The author of this article said, I made a very modest memorial garden to my mother just a few days after she died. Shopping for flowers the day after her death, I saw a beautiful butterfly feeding on just the kind of flower I was looking for, lantana. I knew that butterfly was the spirit of my mother appearing to comfort me. Sure, part of my brain thought that was a wacky thought, but I chose to ignore that and let myself have the comfort. Why not? Now I have a place to visit her right in my yard, and when a butterfly visits it, I feel so much love and comfort. Don't feel pressured to purge the closet. One woman told me that at 5 months post-death, her departed husband's sister was threatening to come over and remove his clothes herself, insisting it was time for the woman to move on. At 5 months? Go into that closet, inhale the scent of your loved one, take comfort, cry. You decide when and if you want to let go of those things. Yes, don't let people pressure you. People were pressuring me. You got to get a dog. Go get it. When are you going to get a new dog? That was just so insulting to me. I had a couple of people actually try and give me a dog, and I said no, I don't have time. Now, something did happen about, actually just about a month before the anniversary, a little over a month before the anniversary of Basil's passing. And that was a feral cat came into our lives. Feral cats have been coming into our backyard for quite a few months. And then all of a sudden, the situation happened. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there was basically a cat that was going to be euthanized. And the cat reminded us of another feral cat that used to show up in our backyard and didn't anymore. We didn't know what happened. Orson, the whole story of Orson, talked about him before. But this cat we thought was Orson and was not. My lovely lady friend told the person, okay, we'll take care of the feral cat. Apparently, if the feral cat is not claimed within a certain amount of time, the company or the organization will euthanize the cat. So they said, we will fix the cat. We will make sure the cat has all its shots and everything is up to date with the cat. You just need to take the cat. And so we became these people that were watching the cat, basically, as it had to stay in a cage, a pretty large cage, pretty roomy cage, for a certain amount of time, as it healed after its surgery, after being fixed. And the cat, after about 2.5 weeks, we were actually supposed to hang on to him for 3 weeks. The cat was being really nice to my lovely lady friend and then escaped. And we thought that was it. We're never going to see this cat again. And suddenly the cat started coming back. And suddenly the cat started being really friendly. And now we got a cat. The cat's name is Rodler, and I posted pictures of him before. Rodler, as I mentioned, is sorry if I'm repeating myself to those of you who have listened to the podcast before, Rodler is a type of beer. Germans put lemonade in beer, and they call it Rodler. And it has a whole story that I mentioned on the podcast about it has having to do with bicyclists that needed a refreshing drink. So you can look it up. So there, things happen in your life. You know, the rest of this article mentions allowing yourself to feel, rest your body, embrace the mystery. We can't truly understand death. Sometimes there is no good answer to why. That's why the why question is not helpful. It's a trap. And get out of it. Drop the thought. It may float by once in a while. Just acknowledge it, then let it pass. Move your awareness to your heart. Get grounded and rest. There are always ways to dive into mysteries in a healing way, such as studying death and dying in other cultures, joining a dream group, going to services of your choice, being in nature. Wear black if you want to. Just do it if you feel like it. Honor your loved one. Some of those old mourning traditions were helpful. You could put a mourning wreath on your door or make a memorial web page. Public acknowledgement of grief and loss help normalize the state of mourning for all of us. Don't put a time limit on your pain, and get support too. There you go. So this article was written by someone by the name of Margaret A. Howard, an MFA, which is what my lovely lady friend is, actually. But my lovely lady friend is not named Margaret A. Howard, but Margaret A. Howard does write for HuffPost.com. Okay, this is interesting. Jermaine Montel liked my tweet. My last podcast, which was called Blank. Thank you, Jermaine Montel. And I was going to mention, that was on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, it mentioned on Twitter that Disneyland has unveiled big changes on the iconic Jungle Cruise ride. They apparently developed a reputation for racist depictions of indigenous people as tourist attractions, attackers, or cannibals. Tribal caricatures crafted through a colonialist lens. Now the updated ride has dealt with that, apparently. And then, of course, there is a movie that's coming, or has come out with The Rock, with the Dwayne Johnson and Emma Thompson, Emma Clark, one of the Emmas. All British actresses are the same, Mike, and they're all named Emma. Is that what you're saying, Mike? Sorry. The one from, she's got a lot of movies out now. The Quiet movie, where they can't talk because the aliens will kill them. The sequel to that, which is doing really well. Wow, I can't think of anything. A former skipper here tweets, I remember watching smiles of black guests fall the second we got to the trap safari and never came back. It's about making sure every guest gets the chance to enjoy it as the ride was envisioned. The movie is out. They're part of a broader attempt by Disney and Imagineering to ensure Disneyland remains a vital part of the cultural conversation rather than a cultural artifact. Interesting. I was talking with my lovely lady friend today about how I Dream a Genie. So my lovely lady friend was wearing something rather nice, showing off her midriff. And I said, oh, you kind of look like the genie in I Dream a Genie. And she goes, oh, I love that show. And I go, yeah, Barbara Feldman and Larry Hagman. And we were trying to remember what Barbara Feldman did after I Dream a Genie. Larry Hagman, of course, had J.R. Ewing and the whole Dallas show after that. And now they're both gone. They're no longer with us. But, she called him Master all the time on that show. Yikes. There were so many sitcoms in the 60s and 70s that would just not fly today. Hogan's Heroes, for some obvious reasons. What was that other one we were thinking of? Just like basic thing. Oh, F Troop. I don't know if any of you know what F Troop is, but there was some stuff about indigenous peoples that would not fly today. There's the list goes on. Cartoons from, every time you have a conversation with someone who, let's say, is 80 and over, you might hear some phrases. Heck, even me in my 50s, I say things that aren't exactly, yes, the term woke. It's not going to, everyone's going to, at some point or another, hurt someone's feelings and step on their tongue is going to, foot in mouth is what's going to happen. Even that expression, foot in mouth, is going to someday offend somebody. So maybe we should talk about something else. One last thing before we wrap up the show. Downtime. We're talking about taking some time for yourself when things get a little crazy and you're mourning someone and just other stuff happening. In a plugged-in age, disconnecting is the key to finding your creativity. Regardless of who you are or what you do, regularly getting in touch with your creative side can make you better at work and happier in life. Creativity is about connection. You have to be connected to the world so you can steal inspiration and influence from it, writes Austin Kleon, who is the author of several best-selling books on creativity. But creativity is equally about disconnection. You have to get away from the world long enough to take the bits and pieces you've lifted and turn them into something of your own. Airplane mode can be a way of life, he writes. I've always been too cheap to pay for in-flight Wi-Fi, so before the pandemic, I used to get a lot of work done on long plane flights. Now I don't fly anywhere, but you don't have to be on a plane to practice airplane mode. Pop in some earplugs and switch your phone to airplane mode, and you suddenly have a distraction-free zone in which you can do your work. Use your hands. Your hands are the original digital devices. In the digital age, don't forget to use your digits, writes the cartoonist Linda Berry. Linda Berry. She doesn't do Ernie Pook's comique, does she? To get away from screens once in a while, writes Austin Kleon, I recommend what I call an analog desk, a separate workplace filled with pens, pencils, paper, and other art and craft supplies, free of electronic devices. When you need a break or a creative boost, leave your laptop and your phone elsewhere, pop over to the analog desk and play for 15 minutes. And walking. Walking is a huge benefit to you. Take a walk. And you know what? I am forced to take a walk every day because in order to keep the insurance plan that I'm on, I have to get a certain amount of points every day. So I need to actually walk a certain amount to get my points in, get my steps in. Walking is a magical cure for people who want to think straight. And there's a long list of creative people who have sworn by a daily walk to get good ideas. Austin Cleon writes, I'm one of them. Every day, rain or shine, my wife and I load our sons in a double stroller and I take a 3-mile walk around our neighborhood in Austin, Texas. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard wrote, I have walked myself into my best thoughts. When we use the word creative as a job title, it wrongly insinuates that all other jobs are non-creative and that the world is split between those who possess creativity and those who don't. Creativity is not a talent. It's a way of operating. You know who said that? John Cleese, Monty Python, Fish Called Wanda. And that he was Q, wasn't he? Or M, or no, Q. And a couple of the James Bonds when Pierce Brosnan was James Bond, I think. That's every human has the potential to be creative. They just need the right operating instructions. In other words, don't think of creativity as a noun, something you have. Instead, think of it as a verb, something you do. The more you do, the better you'll be. We're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont, the last place on earth. And I am sorry I have not done a podcast in a while, but it's been a couple of days. It's been a rough couple of days. But I'll try and be more regular about it. But you can chime in about anything that we covered today. 336MM Daily. 3 plus 3 equals 6. MM as in Mike Matthews Daily, as in what this podcast tries to be. And you know what? I would do it more daily if I heard from you. There's a certain amount from you that I need. And that is just a little, response, reaction. You can call me at 336MM Daily or email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. That's easy to remember. Or go to the website, mikesdailypodcast.com. And there are a bunch of links to where to get a hold of me on all kinds of social media, even though I despise social media. But yeah, let me know. Drop a line. Every place that I'm at, there's a place to respond, and I get a little notification when I hear from you. So I would just love to hear from you. Please get in touch. Do that. And you will make this podcast last. Well, if this podcast is going to last anyway, it's going to be around no matter what happens as long as I'm alive, obviously. But, it's going to be, I'm going to keep doing it no matter what. But I would be more apt to do this more often and keep it more daily if you would react and respond and give me some feedback. So all the places to reach me, mikesdailypodcast.com. And we're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Look who's here. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How you doing? I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Good. Creativity's fun. Yeah. I like to be creative. I put hats on my horse, Dilly. Aw, Nilly's not here today. Shoot. Yeah. Dilly's out walking herself. Uh-huh. Boy, the creativity here could stand a little boost. Maybe you should give me some more feedback. Feedback on what? Not you, the people listening. Oh, okay. Look who else is here.
It's a disgruntled fiddle player. Tell you what.
What?
I remember when we used to be on in Ventura, California, and y'all would talk to me on the air live. We'd do that live show, and I'd be on.
Yes, the Santa Fe Cafe, but now we're here at Cafe anyway. Different place.
Yep.
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 Yep. What other podcast is going to have two people going yup, yup for about 5 seconds? I think that was enough. And look who else is here. Oh, man, can I make the least root beer Hampton right now? Thank you.
Drink it right now, I couldn't you?
I was having a moment of, just peaceful reflection and rest, and then you pulled a knife on me, but that's okay. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. And with more on how to reach me, it's A-Frame, who, gosh, when's she going to have her baby? Bebe.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
And that is episode 2273, 2273. And yes, the website once again, mikesdailypodcast.com.